And welcome on in. It's Monday, July 13th. Joe Roderick here with you from the showroom at Munganass St. Louis Acura. It is lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, and driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura. And joining me now is Mike Claiborne. Claibs, where are you at?
Well, believe it or not, I am at Munganass Automotive in Alton, Illinois. We decided we were going to we were going to be all over Munganass today, so I'm at the Toyota store over in Alton, and what a massive store it is. I mean, you can spot this thing from basically the riverfront. It's so large, and they have a bunch of cars out there. I saw my good buddy Jamie Burkhart, and he's got a great staff over there. So I'm on the Illinois side, you're on the Missouri side, so we got Munganass covered today.
Yeah, we did. We each crossed rivers to get there. You're at 850 Homer Adams Parkway in Alton, Illinois. I'm at 13720 Manchester over this way. The folks out here, hey, they are the number one in the Chicago zone from January to June. They have the Honda luxury line out here. There's one car over there I need to check out. There's one, the far one over there I need
I
to
know
check
which
out.
one
But
you're talking about. I know which
what
one you're talking about. It's a two-seater.
I
Goes
no, it
about
looks like a four
500
seat.
miles an hour.
No, I know which one you're looking at. The red one, is that the one you're talking about? The two-seater?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a two-seater over there. The one I need to point out, I want pointed out to me, is the far one, the far white one over there. I need to know what kind of car that is. And I see a salesman looking at it right now, and he's going to walk over here and he's going to tell me what kind of car that is. What kind of car is that?
The TLX A spec.
TLS 8
TLX A spec.
A spec. The TLX A spec, Claibs, is the car over there. You've bought two cars from this location. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. No, it's a great location. They've got everything you want. I think from a service standpoint, when you make an investment in a car, you have to make sure that you have a great staff that's going to support your car, your purchase or your lease. And that's the one thing Munganass has always been able to do. Sales staff doesn't change a great deal, so they're going to be people you're going to recognize there, and they know the product. And Joe, today with the way these cars are manufactured, if you don't know the product, then you won't be in the business long. And I think because Munganass has kept their team together for so many years, they're all on the same page. And I'm sure by the end of the day, before you get out of there, they'll have the paperwork all drawn up for you so you can drive off in that brand new car. I can't wait to see it.
The one I have right
Explaining it,
now, I got
explaining it
back
to
in
your wife will be a
March.
different story.
March of 2019 from Alton Toyota, so I'm good. They got me 14, 15 months ago, but I told Jamie, Jamie knows what I'm looking for. He knows what I'm looking for, and when it comes out, I expect an email or a text from him with that. Another thing too, Claibs, I have gifts for you here at Munganass St. Louis Acuras. They gave some golf balls and some golf stuff. You're the golfer. I'm not,
Well,
so I'm
I
gonna
can use both. I can use
yeah.
both. Uh, our good buddy Bernie Miklasz. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention his name because he's on hiatus right now. But Bernie, don't worry, I got a ribeye all set up for you, nice and thick, perfect. Glad you're tuning in today.
Now you got to your camera went off there for a second, Claibs. I don't know what you got to do to turn it back on. But let's get into everything that we wanted to talk about
Here I am.
today. In the so here we are. We've seen last week when we were talking, it was about Cardinal practices, how they got camp underway. We'll get to the Cardinals in just a second, but the Blues got their camp back underway today. You were down there at the practice arena. Tell me what you saw down there.
Well, it was kind of a casual drills. I mean, they went through some drills, more just getting on the ice and getting loose. It was a brief, quick practice, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. One thing about hockey, they don't stay on the ice that long. And I just think today was just kind of a feel out process. And they had two different sessions going. They're not, I don't know when they'll have a full team skate because of all the regulations about how many people can be on the ice and in various phases that the NHL has prescribed. So I'm not sure when that's going to take place, but they had two practices today for two different groups. And again, they were not ones that were out there for too long, but they were just working on shooting and just kind of a casual thing. Goalies just getting a feel for the puck again. Not to say, Joe, they haven't already been doing this, but more in an organized manner is what I would say they're doing now.
We've seen that the Cardinals are currently missing 4 players from their practices, 3 of them due to positive tests to COVID-19, and then you have Gallegos that is, as far as we know, is still in Mexico. They haven't told us why. Were any Blues players missing? Was there a reason given?
No, well, you know what? Because the practices were staggered. One was at 10, and the other one was a little after 12. So to get a full head count, I couldn't give you that because I didn't know who was scheduled to be on in the second session. So not a lot of information being given out, but I know Craig Berube was going to do a Zoom cast with the media along with Alex Petrangelo, and I'm sure that'll be up on our site here fairly soon, where you can take a listen to the whole thing.
Very nice. So they, so it's the end of the month when they'll get underway. The NBC, they released the schedule for how they are going to do the hockey games, and it's going to be, think Thursday, Friday of March Madness is what you're going to get with hockey on NBC, the NBC Sports Network, as they are starting first thing in the morning, and they are going all day long with games. So you will get games all day to just kind of set in and enjoy some hockey once the playoffs, once the restart gets underway. And while some teams will be doing the playoffs, the Blues will be in their round robin playing the other top seeded teams in the West.
And I think you're going to see that in baseball too, because you've got 3 different time zones that you'll have to deal with: Eastern, Central, and West Coast time. And I think you may see something similar to that with baseball, where they've got more games to choose from, obviously. But I think overall, you're going to see marathons that are going to take place where you will be filled to the gills from sunrise to sunset. And I think we're all ready to embrace something like that, and I can't wait for it to happen.
The Cardinals have had their first few practices. They've started playing some games too, some inter-squad games, and the most interesting part to me about that is kind of the uniforms that they're going with. They wore the powdered blues at home the other day, so yeah, it was fun to see them out in those, and we're going to get to actually see them live streaming tomorrow on Tuesday with Danny Mac on the call. So I know a lot of Cardinal fans are going to be happy to get to hear Danny Mac's voice on the call of some sort of Cardinal broadcast.
Nobody's happier about Danny Mac doing the game tomorrow than Danny Mac. I can assure you of that. I know he's been chomping at the bit. Danny and I talk a few times a week, and I know he's anxious to do something, and I'm looking forward to him getting started tomorrow. KMOX, we're going to have a game for you next week against Kansas City. It starts at 3:05, and you can hear it. And we'll be doing some other stuff leading up to that. So Cardinal baseball and Blues hockey are just around the corner, and we'll have enough to satisfy just about everybody.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably get into it more next week as far as the coverage plans go for how you will be handling your job on the radio broadcast and how that's going to work. We'll probably dive into that, as I imagine it's probably a fluid situation right now with a lot of constantly changing ideas.
Yeah, there's been a lot of ideas thrown on the wall with regard to the best way to cover it. I think home games won't be a big problem. I mean, we're going to be there. The only difference will be there won't be any fans at the ballpark. The bigger challenge would probably be when we start to do games off of monitor on the road. But you know what? Mike and John and Ricky are all professionals in how they're going to handle this. So we'll be fine. I mean, it's going to be different. Don't get me wrong. But, Joe, I think as we're learning firsthand, there's a lot of things that are different now. So we'll figure it out, and we'll do the best we can with what we have to work with.
Yeah, we talk. You guys will be stuck at home for all of these games. Where I'd say one of the more interesting stories that we've seen this past week has to do with the umpire Joe West, who came out last week and kind of started to make mention that he wasn't afraid of the of COVID-19. He wasn't afraid of the virus. It wasn't going to stop him from umpiring any games. He was going to keep doing what he does. And now this year was going to be a milestone season for Joe West. You've talked to him. You've had conversations with Joe West. We know him as fans. What do you know? How do you know Joe West as far as the relationship that you've had covering Cardinal games all these years?
Well, I've known Joe for a long time, and I consider him a good friend. I don't know if there's any umpire that knows the rules better than him. And I know that some people feel like he's got a gruff personality, but I've seen Joe West do things for people um, that he didn't have to do it for, especially kids and charities. Very conscious driven when it comes to those sort of things. And again, he may have his moments with players and managers. And I know they always get that shot of him on the field looking like a sourpuss or whatever. But Joe West is a good guy. He's a funny guy. I mean, he's got a line for everything, and he's just a guy with an opinion. And I think that Joe West, he took on some jobs that none of these umpires wanted when it came to having a players association or umpires association union. And Joe took it on when it wasn't a popular item, and has helped grow that union to the point where they've got some pretty good benefits working for him now, and he's had a lot to do with that.
I saw, the comments that he made. How are those going
Yeah.
to go over in a clubhouse with teams' front offices? How are those going to be perceived?
Well, that's a good question. Again, Joe is speaking on behalf of Joe, not the Umpires Association. And I think that we see people who will have some interesting opinions on why COVID is what it is. I had someone tell me today they think that the reasons why COVID is so off the chain in Arizona and California and Texas is because it's on the Mexican border. You do the math on that, okay? I mean, I thought we built a wall to prevent that, according to how things work today. So everybody's got a different opinion on why we have what we have and where we're going from here. And I've tried to respect people's opinions. I may not agree with it, but you know what? They're entitled to it. So I think for Joe, it was a situation where it was something he felt. I don't think it was anything that was prescribed by Major League Baseball, let alone the Umpires Association. This is just his opinion. And we've seen opinions get people in trouble before. One thing about Joe West, um, I think when you look at him, it's never unfiltered. I mean, it's never filtered. It's always unfiltered. He is who he is. And, he's got some firm beliefs about things. By the way, did you know that Joe West, if I'm not mistaken, is the all-time leading passer at Elon, the same place John Brebbia played ball? Quarterback.
Like, really?
Yeah. I'm told Joe West was a pretty good athlete back in the day. I
That
wasn't
is,
there. I've had two people tell me Joe West was a better athlete than he looks.
I mean,
Uh,
I know he is a country artist. I knew that about him. I
he's a
never.
singer. He had a couple of albums out, and he's a country West. His nickname used to be the singing cowboy. The country Joe West was his nickname.
But so you guys have had him on live at Shannon's, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What are the plans for that? For that show this year? Has there
Uh,
been any talk about that?
still up for debate, but I would think that we'll probably not do it because most of our guests we've relied on were people at the ballpark that
Hmm.
would stop by and sit in. They'd be in town for a game or whatever. There's still some discussion maybe about doing a show with Cardinal alums of yesteryear. We may still do that, but that's still up for debate. But to have the show from the ballpark as we knew it probably won't happen this year.
You mentioned the Cardinal alums. You can hear a lot of stories about those Cardinal alums each and every day on this day in Cardinal history on Claibs Online. We've been putting one up every single day since March 26th, which was supposed to be the season opener, the
Opening day.
2020 season opener, and we have been putting one out each and every day since then. Yesterday's was a really good one, and I've noticed that when you look at the numbers for some of these, it was I'll have to ask and see what the numbers are like, because not only was it a Stan Musial highlight, it was an audio highlight of Stan Musial, his walk-off home run from the 1955 All-Star game for that year. So that was that was a pretty cool one to go back and listen to the call of that, which tomorrow, July 14th, was supposed to be this year's All-Star game in Los Angeles. So one of the things that we are going to be missing out on this year. Tonight should have been the home run derby in LA.
Well, I'm sorry I'm missing that one.
You know what?
I
So
I'm never a big fan of that.
So last year was the first All-Star game that I went to, and a year ago I was on crutches because I was a few weeks removed from from my ACL surgery, and I was there with your KMOX coworker Ben Boyd, and I told him, I said, let's go out in the outfield, let's go walk around and let's see what these balls look like flying out of here. So in Cleveland, right in front of the bullpens are side by side in Cleveland. We went out into that area because there's a seating area there. We were the only two there without gloves.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
And
ritual now.
I was also on crutches as we're trying to stand in this area as Josh Bell and Pete Alonso are hitting line drives right at us. And it wasn't the smartest decision that we ever made.
Let me tell you a great All-Star story. Oh, go ahead and finish, please.
No, I was gonna say, one of the things I learned, which I don't know if people know this about the home run derby, and I don't know how long they've been doing this. So Josh Bell hit one in our area, and we were talking to the guy that caught it, and we just asked him, we just wanted to see the ball, and we look at the ball, and it has Josh Bell's autograph on it, and we came to find out that the players will autograph buckets of baseballs before they go out there and hit them.
Yeah.
So whoever's home run ball you catch, you also have an autograph of that player. So I thought that was pretty cool, and added bonus to catching a ball during the home run derby.
Well, now for a player who goes to the All-Star game, he's got a better chance of getting writer's cramp than any other injury because you sign forever. Between the balls and the jerseys and the memorabilia that baseball wants to have, it's a true autograph fest. So let me tell you the story. All-Star game, this was like in the early 70s, I believe. So Pete Rose was playing, like in the old days, they would take a group of major leaguers to Japan and they'd play against the Japanese All-Stars. So one year Pete Rose went and he noticed that the balls that they were using over there had a lot of life to them, a little smaller, a little tighter wound, and they traveled, okay? So Rose kind of makes note of this and has the equipment guy buy 10 dozen balls, all right? So he just says, just wait until the All-Star game. So they get back to the States. Here we go. All-Star game, I believe, was in San Diego. It was a big ballpark. I do remember that. So when the National League comes out for batting practice, Pete Rose makes sure that the batting practice pitcher used these balls he brought back from Japan. So now we got true home run derby. The National Leaguers are hitting rockets in the fourth deck of this ballpark, and the American League players come out and they cannot believe how far some of these guys are hitting balls. And so, nobody's seen balls hit this far ever. So now the American League is like, wow, that's pretty good display. So then they come out and all their balls are going in the second deck, maybe third deck, nothing like what they saw earlier. The problem was the pitchers saw how the National League were hitting balls, and they never had a chance in that game. National League ended up winning the All-Star game. But Pete Rose helped win that All-Star game just in batting practice alone.
I believe tomorrow's This Day in Cardinal History will touch on the All-Star game that was here back in 2009.
1966. So, oh, okay, 90.
No,
okay,
the 2009 one.
2000, okay.
I don't know the date of the 66 one. I'm not sure what date that was. I don't think that was coming up on our list. But we do have audio later in the. We have audio of a few different Bob Gibson highlights coming up this week too. One really good one, and one that I imagine that scared a lot of people when it happened back in 1967.
I won't spoil it. It was an interesting time, and you know what? I remember when it happened, and he tried to continue to pitch, and Nelson Briles got a chance to be a starter, and he was dynamic down the stretch that year. I believe it was 1967. So, looking forward to hearing that one.
The other day we saw the Masahiro Tanaka. He took a line drive off of his head during Yankees practice, and there were Yankees players that were upset that the video was posted online of that. So I feel like, if it happened in a game, we would have seen it in a game. These practices are wide open. I have no problem with anybody in the media posting something like that, especially knowing that he was okay. That now knowing that he was alert and seemingly nothing that's going to ruin his career, I have no problem with posting a video like that online. It shows the danger that some of these guys actually face.
Well, you make a good point, and I think it just kind of gives you an indication of how the business has changed with regard to what's something you cover, what's something you don't cover. I remember when Vince Coleman had the tarp run up on him, and how there was some players that were angry at the photographers for taking pictures of him being carried off the field. It's part of the business. I'm not sure if I always agree with it, but I get it. It is part of what we do, and we want to always be first, and I don't think we take into account the ramifications that sometimes come with it. But I think you make a good point about the fact that once they realized he was okay, it was probably a little bit more acceptable to watch.
I wanted to touch quickly as we keep things moving along here. It's lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura, Munganass Alton Toyota. I am at the Munganass St. Louis Acura location. Claibs is sitting out there at the Alton Toyota location, so we're giving you double duty here of the at the shows. The colleges came out. So last week, as we've touched a few times on COVID-19 and the rising numbers throughout the country, last week the Ivy League came out and they were first. They were ahead of this. They're the smart ones, the Ivy League folks, and they came out and said that they were canceling all sports for 2021. So they were postponing everything. Or I should say in 2020, they were postponing everything until 2021, while the Pac-10 and the Big Ten so far have each come out and said that their football season will be conference games only. So no traveling, no playing the Division I AA schools, no playing the big non-conference games to start the season. They will be playing conference games only in what's a step to, I guess, hopefully have a college football season and try to limit as much exposure as possible. I really, the way it's trending, it's hard to imagine that we're going to get a college football season, but just to see these steps being made in early July is a little eye-opening to how these colleges are moving forward and how short of a time. I mean, we have 6-8 weeks away before the start of those seasons would be, and now we're getting schedule changes.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at it a little differently. One, you cut down your expenses dramatically because in a lot of cases, your non-conference game was a blood donor that you were paying to come take a beating. Two, with you playing conference games, that means you can move your schedule back a little bit more as far as games on the schedule, because seldom do you open up with a conference foe. And I think three, when you keep it where your travel is a little bit more local compared to going across the country or whatever. Now, the big challenge is you would lose the TV money from that big non-conference game. But then again, think about how many of these schools were getting those non-conference games like that. You had the first weekend in August or that last weekend in August where you have a couple of big blockbuster games. So you don't really lose anything because somebody was paying you to play. But I really look at it more along the line. They don't have to pay these blood donors to come in. That's money that they're going to save and money they're going to need because they won't have the revenue as they once were accustomed to. So, and also you move the schedule back a couple, 3, maybe 4 weeks before you get into conference league play.
Yeah, I guess it does open up. Maybe you do get a few more. You can replace some of those games, as you said, with those conference games, and the rules of the other conferences, you're just kind of working within that as far as testing goes, as far as some of these protocols will go. So as much as I want to see college football happen this year, I still don't think we're going to get it, but we're seeing some moves taken. By the way, from the comments section, the All-Star game in 1966 was on July 12th. So that would have been yesterday.
Okay.
Would have been that. I think we chose a better this day in Cardinal history with the Stan Musial home run instead of the 1966 All-Star game.
Anytime you got Stan, you got a better choice. Trust me.
I've noticed that as we've gone along. Hey, sticking with football, probably the biggest story of the day today that nationwide is coming from the nation's capital, as the Washington Redskins announced today they're in a memo that they released that they will be changing their team name. It's something that we wanted to get into last week and we didn't have the time to do so. But after all of these years, 87 years of being known as the Washington Redskins, we will get a new mascot, a new logo in our nation's capital, and that comes after FedEx and many other partners asked Daniel Snyder to change the team name, which he said back in 2005 would never, ever, ever happen. And here in 2020, it's happening because multiple corporate sponsors said they were going to take money away from him if they didn't.
Well,
yeah.
Hey, I think it's the right thing to do. The only people who I hear complain about this, as far as the whole thing, why should they change the name, are people who aren't native, people who it doesn't directly affect. And I think that's part of our problem in this country. As I've said to you countless times, we're not listening. I don't know how this hurts people who aren't Native Americans. I don't know how this takes money away or anything. And spare me with the whole tradition thing, because I've heard that about the Confederacy. So it's one of those situations that's long overdue. I mentioned earlier with Frank that George Preston Marshall was one of the greatest racists in the history of this country when it came to sports. And if you don't think so, you can ask some of the players who played for him. And it's unfortunate Bobby Mitchell's no longer alive. He can tell you stories about George Preston Marshall and make your hair stand on end. So for them to change the name and move on, I think is a great idea. And again, if you're not a Native American, you probably think there's something wrong with this, or what's the big deal? And that's where we have to start understanding how it works for people who don't look like the person who's complaining.
Yeah, the one of the reasons why we didn't get a new team name today, though, they announced they were retiring the nickname of the Redskins while putting it out on a memo with the name and logo of the Redskins.
The last thing that they'll ever put out with that logo on it, I bet. That they want to retire everything. They got all that extra paper sitting around, Joe, with the logo on. They got to figure out what to do with it other than make paper airplanes with it.
There is a gentleman in the D.C. area by the name of Martin McCauley. And I don't know if you've heard this story or not, Claibs, but he is a realtor in the Alexandria area. And over the years, he has purchased the trademarks for such names as the Washington Red Wolves, the Washington Tribe, the Washington Red Tails, the Washington Monuments, the Washington Warhogs, the Washington Red-Tailed Hawks. So he has purchased all of these team names and trademarks to kind of take away any options for the Redskins, maybe in hopes of getting a payday from them. As it looks like we've lost Mike Claiborne for the mix right now. So as of there was talk of possibly not having a team name yet. They've talked about that they will have one soon, and they've talked about having Dan Snyder and the current head coach Ron Rivera be the two that are discussing what possible team name they can go to as we welcome Claibs back into the mix. So this realtor in DC has taken all of the options away of possible team names that they could have, unless Dan Snyder wants to pay him for one of these. So as of right now, we're not sure what that team name is going to be. They are going to stick with the colors, they said, but not sure beyond that.
They'll take some time to get it figured out. They've got a little time to get it done. So it's not something I'm overly worried about. They'll come up with something.
And the best one I've seen, though, is somebody in California has trademarked the Washington Rad Skins. and so they won't be known as the Radskins either. So all kinds of names have been taken away for possible use with that. And then we end here, Claibs, before we wrap things up here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe. The NBA slowly starting to get back. Russell Westbrook, it was announced about an hour ago, he tested positive for COVID-19. He's also asymptomatic, so he's quarantined for a while until he gets those negative tests. But the NBA was making headlines this weekend because Adrian Wojnarowski, the insider for ESPN, it was revealed that he replied to an email from Missouri Senator Josh Hawley with 2 words. And because of that, Josh Hawley went and tattled on him to Clay Travis at Outkick the Coverage. And ESPN has since suspended Woj. For that, he's not able to be on Twitter for the next 2 weeks either, so we can't get any kind of breaking news from him while he's suspended. Your thoughts on how that played out?
Well, I know Adrian, and I think he's a really good guy. He lets emotions get the most of him, and I can understand why, because this was kind of a hit job, because Josh Hawley and the other guy, they obviously weren't big fans of the NBA. And I guess my question to Senator Hawley would be, it's amazing how interested he is on what the NBA's reaction is to a foreign government and how they treat their people, when he probably hasn't raised one hand doing this whole civil unrest about what actually goes on in this country. I think before we start questioning the manners of some other country, we ought to take a look at our own backyard with regard to how things are done and how people are dealt with. And I found it was just something odd, and he decided he wanted to start with the NBA when there are a ton of other things that even go on in his own district, or his own state rather, that he could directly address. So to go after the NBA, I found, well, what else can you say? Another political jab by somebody who wants to make 5 o'clock news for one reason or another. So while I'm sure Adrian would have chosen his words differently, I got the gist of his message.
I think we all did. I think his message came across loud and clear to Senator Josh Hawley. So, Claibs, as we get set to wrap things up here from our two
Joe,
Mungan-ass
I don't know if you
dealerships.
can hear me. I can't hear you now.
You can't hear me now. I saw that you were muted for a second, but now
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all.
Can't hear you.
Well, then I'm just going to wrap things up then as we go here. As I don't know what happened on your connection.
You can hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
I can't hear you. So
see, this is the beauty of doing this stream on.
Because I can't hear you, and I know you got some other things to talk about, I'm gonna probably go online and just listen to you because I can't hear you. So
that's fine with me.
I want to thank the folks over here at Mungan-ass.
That works,
right.
Claibs.
Adios.
As we lost Claibs here, it's the beauty of doing this stream online and trying to make things work from 2 different locations. I was getting ready to wrap things up anyway. A big week, as I said, of this day in Cardinal history is that we have. We're also about 10 days away from the start of the 2020 Major League Baseball season. A lot of roundtables coming up next week. A lot of live video that Claibs and I are planning to do all of next week on the website, here on Facebook, here on Twitter, wherever it is that you're watching us, to give you the best preview that we can of all of the Cardinals' opponents this year, which just come from the National League Central and the American League Central. So we plan on doing a roundtable that is only American League Central coverage, and then we'll do one that's just National League coverage, and then we'll have one Cardinal related as well. So a lot of baseball coverage coming your way before the Cardinals start their season on July 24th. And then we are also about 10, 11 days away from the debut of What's in the Cards with Joe and Polo, which will be a short daily podcast that myself and the Cardinals Spanish-speaking play-by-play voice, Polo Asensio, will be doing each and every day during Cardinal season. Every day they have a game, you'll be able to hear Polo and I give you the lineups and get you the thoughts on that each and every day. And then with all of sports starting, a few other things in the works as well here on claibsonline.com. 13720 Manchester Road in Collins, or in St. Louis, is where you can find Munganass St. Louis Acura. Claibs is over at the Alton, Illinois location. Munganass Alton Toyota, 850 Homer Adams Parkway in Alton, Illinois is where he was. Both great sponsors here of everything that we do on claibsonline.com. Also powered by Ameren, Illinois. We will, you'll hear from us a lot this week, all of the interviews and all of this day in Cardinal histories that we have planned for you. Just keep checking us out. Make sure to subscribe on the whatever podcast app that you use, whether it be Google, Spotify, iTunes, whatever it is. Just search claibsonline.com and you'll get those podcasts delivered to you each and every day right here on claibsonline.com. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. We thank you for joining us today for another episode of Lunch with Claibs and Joe right here on claibsonline.com.